Welcome to Wellspring Wednesday. Wherever you are, we are glad you are present with us right now. We invite you to enter fully into worship by lighting your chalice and praying and singing along with Drew and I. I remember the first time I heard a sculptor describe that they did not build the sculpture. Rather, they peeled away the clay so that the sculpture itself could emerge. I've heard of poets describe a similar thing. A poet working in the fields, and the words of a poem arrives, and they have to run into the house and grab a pen and paper and write it down before the poem disappears. There's something wondrous to me about the art itself giving the artist their authority. Come, let us worship together.
Join us in singing Love Will Guide Us.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us, will lead the way on the road from me to here. Love will guide us through the dark night. If you cannot see like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can get from me within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from grace to grace. Love will guide us through the dark night.
Each week, we take the time to listen to the joys and sorrows swirling throughout our community. Together, we celebrate, we grieve, we tenderly hold what is as well as what we long for. Drew and I will continue to reach out via email to ask families to share with us, and feel free to send us your joys and sorrows whenever you are so moved. This week we are sharing from the families of first and second graders in our congregation. Second grader Sebastian Holland says his joy is that his grandma and grandpa recovered from COVID this fall, and he was able to go to the farm over the weekend and be with them for a late Christmas. His sorrow is that he couldn't be with the whole family for a big Christmas. Second grader Clara Ruffy's sorrow is that lots of things were canceled and changed because of COVID this year. My joy is that I get to spend a lot of time with my family, and my grandma was able to visit for Christmas and stay for a whole month. The Kittuck family, Theo, Logan, Greta, Michael, and Cindy share that this week's sorrow is that Greta had unexpected foot surgery on New Year's Day after stepping on a sewing needle. But her joy is that she now gets to spend a whole lot of time reading while recovering. The Arzamendia family, Ever, Amir, Oscar, and Kara share. A joy has been movie nights together. A sorrow is that we are still at home wanting to go back to school. First grader Anna Prestgard shares, "My joy is having a sister that I can play with, and being able to see my neighbors outside, and having Grandma write her memories down in a book to read. My sorrow is that Mommy hurt her foot and feels a little sick." Second grader Marina Savolini-Lee's joy is that Joe Biden was elected president, and her sorrow is that we're still in COVID. The Solas family, Lachlan, Isla, Karen, and Nate share, "Our family sorrow is that Karen's mom has been in and out of the hospital since having a stroke just before Christmas. Our joy is getting to ice skate on a pond together for hours under a nearly full moon on New Year's Eve." The Salmons and Hoffman family, Althea, Clara, Peter, and Kate share, "We were so fortunate to get to spend the holidays with family. It was a wonderful Christmas break filled with the great conjunction, lots of baking, blasting off rockets, cousins, Legos, and chickens. COVID considerations meant we didn't get to snuggle and play with newest cousin Theo in person, but hopefully that will change by the end of the year. And will you pray with me? Spirit of life, thank you for another year. Thank you for rituals to mark new beginnings, which bring us together with loved ones in whatever ways we can be together. The cycle of beginning is possible in every moment again and again. We recognize that in order to start again, we must have endings. Endings can surely bring joy. The ending of 2020 might be bringing many of us joy right now. But endings also contain grief, loss, change, and the realization that things we yearn for, like gathering together in person and going back to school, continue to take their time. Beginnings, too, can be nerve-wracking or drawn out as we begin to recover from surgery, injury, or illness, as we start back up with the routine of school and work, of being together in our households during the seemingly mundane reality of January. And yet, the cycle of beginnings and endings is what brings forth life, is what allows for moonlit ice skating, the great conjunction, and the memories of our elders written in books to be passed down to us and also our children. Together, in awe of the possibilities and with deep gratitude for life beginning again, we say, Amen.
When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love.
Have you had the experience where you're creating something, where you're telling a story, drawing a picture, writing a poem, possibly even having a dream, where when you've told the story, when you've drawn the picture, you look at it and you say, "That's amazing, where did that come from? I didn't know I had that story. I'm not that smart. How did I come up with that?" I'm thinking about that because the theme for the month is authority. And I'm thinking about the part of that word, authority, that is author. And that's interesting to me because I like to think of myself as an author sometimes, and I like to think about where do those stories come from? Whose right is it for me to tell that story? Earlier this month, we were asked in a staff meeting to describe who our favorite character was from children's literature. And I was somewhat surprised to hear myself saying, it's Harold of Harold and the Purple Crayon. Do you know Harold and the Purple Crayon? Love that story. I'm going to tell a story today about Harold and his purple crayon. So Harold, if you know this story, then you know exactly what I'm talking about, but otherwise I'll try to describe him for you. Harold is 3 or 4 little kid. He is very simply drawn. When we see him, he is usually alone. He is usually not with parents or friends. He's in his room, perhaps. It's always just Harold by himself. Now Harold, I don't want to make it sound like Harold is a sad kid or that there's anything bad going on with this. I just think, as a 3 or 4-year-old, if you can remember that, you can kind of feel like you're just alone. No one's paying attention to you, maybe, and it's just you and your mind. And this is Harold, and Harold is just he and his mind. And his purple crayon. This is a purple crayon. Harold has his crayon, and he has his imagination. And so we see in the Harold and the Purple Crayon stories, Harold diving in and writing himself into a story. He has the ability with his crayon to draw something and then go there. So in this story, Harold decides to draw a boat. And he is able to get in the boat. And he is able to set sail upon the ocean. And there he is, sailing along, the wind blowing into the sails, the water gently lapping at the sides of the boat, the sun beating down on him, its rays in his face. And he is enjoying sailing. And he starts to wonder, where am I going? Where is this trip taking me? And so, he continues along. He continues along until he sees a whale blowing its spout. And he sees seagulls. And with the seagulls, he starts to think, he must be coming towards the land. And so, with his purple crayon, he draws a shoreline. And his boat comes to the shoreline, and he lands. And when he lands, he puts up his flag. And it is good. So he wants to explore on this land. And he's starting to look around, and he's realizing, before I go and before I get too far into the island, I need something to eat. I'm hungry and I'm thirsty. Where is he going to find this? Where is sustenance going to come? Luckily, he sees, or draws, that there is a tree. A big tree. And what kind of tree? It's a palm tree. It's a tree with coconuts on it. And he thinks a coconut would just be perfect. That would be just what I need. How can I get a coconut? And he thinks, and it comes to him, he needs to pull out his, that is a boomerang. He pulls out his boomerang and he throws the boomerang at the coconuts, knocks one down, and now he has a coconut in his hands. And he thinks, yeah, what do I do with this coconut? Well, being a good sailor, like any good sailor would be, he has, of course, his cutlass, his knife, which he is able to use to slice open the coconut. And then he has the 2 coconut halves. He can drink the delicious milk, and he can eat the delicious meat of the coconut. And he is happy, and he is satisfied. And he thinks, now, in this story, what I need to do is investigate. I need to go into And so, he travels further into the island until he comes to a stream. And along the stream there are many flowers, and he sniffs the flowers. And he runs his hands through the grass, and he sees the little fish. That's a fish. In the water, he thinks about catching them, but then he thinks, I'll let them go. And he is enjoying his exploring. But as always happens in these Harold books, when you're thinking he could be creating any kind of paradise for himself, make himself the king of anything, that's usually not what happens. Harold, this 3 or 4-year-old, has a sense of that that really, as this explorer, as this going into a new place, writing the story, there are going to be challenges. There are going to be things that are going to press him and push him. And sure enough, he hears, after a little while, he hears a low rumble in the grass. He's wondering, low rumble. And that rumble turns to something more like a growl. And now he's on guard, a growl. And he looks a little bit closer, and the grass parts. And yes, of course, there is something that he was not expecting. And it has horns, and it has big teeth, and it has sharp claws, and it's growling, and it's looking at him, wondering, who is this who has intruded on my island? And the roar is coming as he starts to come closer to Harold, and now Harold has trouble. And I remember reading this as a kid thinking, why would Harold do this? Why would he introduce a monster into this scene? He just knows that there are challenges, there are unknowns, there are things he's going to face. And right now he's perhaps in trouble. What's he going to do? Well, he has the pen, right? He has the purple crayon, and so what he does at that point is he builds a staircase. A staircase that goes a good piece away from the creature. And he climbs up it, and he gets to the top. And he's safe. But he looks down, and he can still hear the growling and the grumbling, and he can hear that the monster, the beast, is coming closer. What is he going to do? What is he going to do? He draws himself a vine, and he ties a knot on the end of the vine, and he grabs it, and he swings back to shore to his boat, which he at this point remembers is actually a great big ship with a big motor on the back. And there's people in it who are there. It's his family, it's his friends, it's his aunts and uncles, and they're here, and they're saying, Harold, come on, and Harold lands. And Harold sails away. And he sails back home. And when he gets home, he can rest, and he can think, and he can calm himself, and he can go over these things, and he can say, what a story, what a story. I'm glad that the boat came. I'm glad that I knew what to do. I'm glad I had all these things. And he thinks, I will do another adventure one day. I will try this again. I will go out because I have what I need with my purple pen and with everything I know. And I know where to go. I will be careful. And I will create the story that I need, and it will be fun. And may that be so. Join us as we sing.
Come sing a song with me. Thank you for that story.
Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. That I might know your love. And I'll bring you home when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and the rose in the winter time. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me. That I might know your mind. And I'll bring you home when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and the rose in the winter
we all know that we have that purple crayon. I hope we have the courage to know that we do write our stories, that we don't have to let the story be written for us, that we don't have to face the world waiting for it to be told to us and laid out to us. I hope we know that it's in there. What to do, how to do it together, how to do it for each other. It's in there, and we know it, and we will pull it out with our purple crayons. So let us do that bravely together. Make it so.